The dinner started as a routine end to a long day at work, yet already beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of tension. We met at a quiet, upscale restaurant not far from the office, a place often chosen by my boss to conduct meetings outside the formal setting. I had attended dinners like this before, occasions where the lines between professional rapport and personal boundaries blurred, especially with someone in a position of authority over me. But on this particular night, something felt different. An intangible heaviness settled in the air even before we took our seats. As we were seated, I noticed the boss's demeanor was more reserved, less open than usual. His polite smile didn't quite reach his eyes, and when he spoke, his tone carried a subtle edge. I tried to maintain my usual professionalism, attentive and engaged, hoping to keep the discussion focused on work objectives and not stray into uncomfortable territory. The conversation began with standard updates on project statuses, deadlines, and team performance, topics I was prepared for and confident discussing. Yet, beneath those surface-level topics, I could sense an unspoken tension, almost like walking on thin ice. I suspected there were frustrations bubbling beneath his composed exterior, frustrations possibly tied to results that hadn't met expectations, or perhaps the stress of management itself. Occasionally, his responses felt clipped, and some of his feedback, while framed as constructive, struck a tone that left me uneasy. The dinner also marked a rare opportunity to glimpse the human face behind the corporate mask. My boss shared anecdotes about pressures from upper management, expressing fatigue from endless meetings and the constant need to prove value. At first, I sympathized. Many new leadership came with its unique set of challenges. But as the night unfolded, the dynamics shifted in ways I hadn't anticipated. Our conversation veered from formal work updates to more personal commentary about team members, including myself. Instead of the usual commendations or neutral feedback, his remarks carried a sharper, dismissive tone. I could feel the growing disparity between his position of power and my own vulnerability as an employee. His demeanor seemed to underscore a belief that individuals, including myself, were expendable elements in a larger corporate machine. The setting, a cozy yet dimly lit restaurant with soft music playing in the background, created a surreal contrast to the harshness of his words. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of nearby diners, and the flickering candlelight all seemed to frame moments that would otherwise be warm and congenial. But my attention was gripped by the tense atmosphere at our table. We moved through courses, starter, main dish, and dessert, yet the conversation grew more pointed. At times I tried to steer the dialogue back to neutral or positive territory, but his comments became increasingly blunt. There was a palpable imbalance of power, where his words didn't just critique my work but seemed to diminish my intrinsic value as a professional. Throughout the meal, I took careful mental notes, weighing each sentence, every inflection. I analyzed whether this was a calculated push to provoke a reaction or simply a manifestation of latent frustrations he perhaps didn't fully realize. I wrestled internally, battling feelings of confusion, hurt, and defiance. How could someone who once seemed to recognize my contributions now speak with such casual disregard? At one point, I caught myself withdrawing emotionally, retreating behind a facade of calmness while inside a storm brewed. I wondered if other colleagues had endured similar experiences or if this was an isolated moment. The contrast between the refined atmosphere of the restaurant and the rawness of the conversation emphasized the personal impact of words spoken in a place normally reserved for connection and civility. I also reflected on the paradox of workplace relationships where authority and respect must coexist, yet are often vulnerable to rupture. The power dynamics that underpin these interactions can make it difficult to respond authentically when faced with harsh criticism or dismissal. I felt caught between the desire to defend myself and the professional imperative to maintain composure. As we finished the meal, I was acutely aware that the tone had shifted irreversibly. The warm meal and pleasant surroundings seemed hollow now, overshadowed by the underlying message that I was viewed as replaceable, a commodity rather than a valued individual. That realization unsettled me deeply. Leaving the restaurant, the cool night air felt like a sobering contrast to the heavy atmosphere inside. I walked away grappling with a swirl of emotions: disappointment, indignation, but also a growing sense of clarity about how I wanted to respond to this moment. The dinner that began as a simple work-related outing had become a pivotal experience, one that exposed vulnerabilities and ignited a determination to reassess my professional path. In hindsight, that evening was a turning point. It crystallized feelings I had only partially acknowledged before about my role in the workplace and the respect I deserved. It highlighted the precariousness of relying on external validation and the importance of recognizing one's own worth, regardless of others' opinions. Though painful, the tension-filled dinner planted seeds of resolve. It urged me to evaluate not only my job but the broader environment I had been part of, the culture, the management style, and the values at play. More than just a meal, it symbolized a moment of awakening, an impetus for change that would soon propel me to make decisions critical to my personal and professional integrity. Reflecting back, I realize now how crucial that evening was. The tension around the dinner table spoke volumes about the realities of workplace power, the fragility of human dignity in corporate settings, and the necessity of standing up for oneself even in the face of discomfort. This was the first act in a story about reclaiming agency, self-respect, and the courage to step into new beginnings. The seemingly ordinary dinner revealed extraordinary truths that would shape my choices, fuel my personal growth, and ultimately lead to profound transformation. The pivotal moment of the evening came unexpectedly, with a remark that sharply cut through the formalities and civility of the dinner. As the meal progressed and conversation flowed between us, careful phrases, veiled critiques, and guarded small talk, the boss's tone gradually shifted, growing more candid and, ultimately, chillingly dismissive. Then, almost casually, almost as if it were a joke to mask something deeper, he laughed and said, "You're replaceable." The words landed like a physical blow, echoing through me with brutal clarity. It wasn't merely a statement about the job or my performance. It felt like a verdict on my value as a professional and, as painful as it was to admit, as a person. The laughter that accompanied the comment only intensified the sting, transforming the phrase from a detached observation into a cutting dismissal. For a moment, I sat frozen, the sound of his laughter lingering ominously in my ears. My mind scrambled to process what had just been said. Was it a test? A joke gone wrong? Or a cold declaration of a reality I had never dared confront so directly? The shock of hearing such words from someone who was supposed to be a mentor, a leader, and perhaps an ally was disorienting. In that instant, everything about our relationship and the work environment flashed before my eyes. I recalled moments of praise and support, which now felt hollow in light of this statement. I thought about the countless hours I had poured into projects, the late nights and sacrifices made, not just for the company, but to prove my worth, to earn respect and acknowledgement. Yet here was this crushing reminder that, to him, I was just another replaceable cog in an unforgiving machine. The phrase weighed heavily on me, pressing down with suffocating certainty. It stripped away the optimism that had sustained me and exposed a raw nerve of vulnerability. The fear of being undervalued, discarded, and forgotten. In that exchange, the difference between being seen as an individual contributor and being treated as an interchangeable resource was laid brutally bare. I struggled to maintain composure, a mix of emotions flooding through me. Hurt, anger, disbelief, and a simmering resolve. Was this really how my efforts were perceived? Was my dedication so easily dismissed? Beneath the immediate outrage was an undercurrent of deeper questions. What did it truly mean to be replaceable? And why had I allowed myself to be defined by others' judgments for so long? The laughter that accompanied the comment added a bitter edge. It suggested a lack of empathy or recognition for the human impact of those words, as if my value was something trivial or expendable. This emotional detachment was perhaps the most painful, highlighting the chasm between the leadership role my boss occupied and the vulnerability of those like me who relied on his management. In the silence that followed, I found myself grappling with the significance of the moment. The dinner table, once a setting for dialogue and exchange, now felt like an arena where my worth was being judged and found wanting. The casual cruelty of the comment contrasted starkly with the formal ambience of the restaurant. The soft lighting, the elegant table settings, the quiet murmurs of other diners, underscoring how easily professional facades can mask harsh realities. I contemplated responding in kind, challenging the assertion or defending my contributions. Yet, the power imbalance was palpable, and I recognized that confrontation in that moment might only exacerbate the tension or leave me further marginalized. Instead, I played the situation strategically, absorbing the impact while calculating my next steps. Throughout the remainder of the dinner, the atmosphere was irrevocably altered. While conversations continued, they were tinged with a subtle hostility, a barrier that had been erected between us. The comment lingered like a shadow, coloring every exchange and reshaping my perception of my role and future within the organization. Outside the restaurant later that night, I replayed the encounter repeatedly in my mind. Every nuance, every inflection, every syllable dissected as I sought to understand its full meaning and implications. The notion of being replaceable no longer felt like an abstract fear but a tangible, vocalized reality. The words sparked a mixture of self-reflection and resolve. I questioned whether I had been complicit in allowing myself to be undervalued, whether I had prioritized external validation over my own sense of worth. I began to envision alternative paths where respect, recognition, and dignity would not be compromised. Painful though it was, the moment forced an awakening. It underscored the importance of owning my value independently of others' assessments and highlighted the necessity of standing up for myself in professional settings. It also illuminated the harsh truth about workplace realities, where loyalty can be tenuous and individuals sometimes reduced to mere resources. This experience was a stark reminder of the emotional risk inherent in professional relationships and the need for boundaries and self-advocacy. It became clear that continuing in an environment where I was dismissed so cavalierly could exact a damaging toll on my confidence, health, and future. Yet, amid the sting of rejection, a quiet ember of determination was kindled. The boss's laugh and harsh declaration planted the seeds for change, a turning point that would challenge me to take control of my career, reclaim my agency, and refuse to accept being treated as disposable. In the following days, the phrase "you're replaceable" echoed persistently, serving as both a wound and a catalyst. It haunted my thoughts but also motivated me to reassess my place and purpose. This moment was no longer just a painful memory, but the impetus for a decisive course of action, marking the beginning of a journey towards self-empowerment and transformation. Reflecting on that night, I realized how pivotal it was, not for what was said alone, but for how it cracked open my understanding of workplace dynamics and personal worth. The boss's laughter was an emblem of a system that sometimes overlooks individual humanity, but it also became a challenge, to rise above, to redefine my narrative, and ultimately to reclaim my dignity on my own terms. As the initial wave of emotions gradually settled, a clearer, more focused determination began to take shape within me. The pain of the boss's words did not simply fade into background noise. Rather, it crystallized into a compelling impetus to re-examine my professional life and reclaim control of my narrative. I realized that this moment marked a crossroads, demanding more than just passive endurance. It called for decisive action. In the quiet moments that followed the dinner, I engaged in an intense internal dialogue. I revisited my accomplishments, my dedication, and the values that had driven me to excel in my role. This confrontation with my boss's dismissiveness challenged me to distinguish between my intrinsic worth and the opinion of someone who had chosen to belittle me rather than support me. It became clear that my identity and potential could not be curtailed by a single disparaging remark. The gravity of the situation stirred a mix of apprehension and resolve. On the one hand, resigning from a stable position seemed daunting. On the other, accepting continued disregard felt untenable. I realized that enduring an environment where I was seen as replaceable would ultimately erode my self-esteem and limit my growth. This clarity fueled a growing confidence to plan a course of action, one that prioritized self-respect and professional dignity. I began to envision a future in which I would seek opportunities aligned not only with my skills but also with an environment that valued and nurtured employees as individuals. Simultaneously, I reflected on the broader context that allowed such attitudes to flourish. The corporate culture, hierarchical structures, and leadership styles all played roles in creating workplaces where people could be dismissed rather than empowered. Recognizing these systemic factors reinforced my conviction that change, both personal and organizational, was necessary. Throughout the night, as I revisited the encounter repeatedly, the resolve to act solidified. I weighed potential risks and benefits, considering financial security, career trajectory, and emotional well-being. The stakes were high, but the alternative, staying silent and complicit, felt increasingly like a betrayal of myself. This process was not without moments of doubt and fear. I questioned whether I was overreacting, whether I might find fulfillment elsewhere, or whether the grass indeed was greener beyond the familiar. Yet, the memory of those words and the feeling of being diminished provided a powerful counterbalance, reminding me of the importance of self-advocacy. Eventually, I committed to making a change. The decision to resign was not impulsive but deliberate, born of reflection, courage, and a desire to affirm my value. It was an act of reclaiming agency, a refusal to be defined by someone else's dismissiveness. In the midst of this transition, I also sought outlets for support and grounding. Conversations with trusted friends, mentors, and family offered perspective, encouragement, and practical advice. Their validation reaffirmed my worth and helped dispel the isolation that such experiences often bring. As dawn approached, a sense of calm replaced the earlier turmoil. I found peace in the knowledge that while the boss's words had struck deeply, they would not determine my future. Instead, they had sparked a vital reckoning, one that empowered me to take charge of my career and my life with newfound clarity and strength. This period of emotional and mental processing was as crucial as any concrete action taken. It allowed me to transition from victimhood to empowerment, from passive acceptance to active decision-making. The boss's dismissive laugh and cold words would remain a painful memory, but they had also become a catalyst, igniting a journey toward authenticity, self-respect, and fulfillment. The dinner that once symbolized dismissal transformed into a defining moment of courage and transformation, one that would shape the path forward with determination and hope. The moment my boss laughed and said, "You're replaceable," I was overwhelmed by a flood of intense emotions. The shock of hearing such a dismissive statement in a moment meant to symbolize professional rapport was profoundly destabilizing. My heart raced as disbelief, hurt, anger, and confusion swirled within me, making it difficult to focus on anything else. These words seemed to strip away all the effort, dedication, and value I had brought to my role, reducing me to a mere interchangeable part in the company's machinery. Initially, I was frozen in place, trying to process what was said. The laughter that accompanied the statement made it worse, as it felt like a cruel joke at my expense. I struggled to reconcile this cold dismissal with the support and recognition I had previously believed characterized my relationship with my boss. The comment exposed a harsh reality. In his eyes, I was nothing more than a replaceable asset, and any personal investment I'd made in my job was irrelevant. This realization caused deep pain. It wasn't just about the job. It was about my worth and identity as a professional. Year after year, I had committed late nights and relentless effort, and suddenly that labor seemed meaningless. The insult carried with it a feeling of invisibility, as though everything I had done could be discarded without hesitation. While the shock and hurt dominated initially, they soon gave way to a surge of anger. It was an anger fueled by the unfairness of being so casually demeaned. I wanted to defend myself, to explain the dedication and results I had delivered. At the same time, I was aware of the power imbalance and the limitations in speaking out at that moment, especially given how casually my boss wielded his authority. Confusion added to the turmoil. I questioned the motivations behind his statement. Was it a careless joke, an expression of deep-seated frustration, or a strategic move to undermine me? This uncertainty made it difficult to respond effectively, and I found myself withdrawing inwardly to protect my sense of self. The environment around the dinner, the soft lighting, the quiet murmur of other diners, clashed with the harshness of that moment, amplifying my disorientation. The words echoed relentlessly in my mind, overshadowing the rest of the evening. The dinner, meant to foster connection and professional rapport, instead became a symbol of rejection and devaluation. In that moment of emotional upheaval, I faced a painful but critical truth. To survive and thrive, I had to redefine my own value and not allow such dismissive attitudes to shape my self-worth. The words, "you're replaceable," planted a seed of determination to reclaim control over my career and life. Though deeply painful, the moment galvanized me. It became a catalyst for reflection on my professional path, my needs, and my future. The laughter that once stung became a symbol of what I refused to accept. This turning point marked the beginning of a journey toward empowerment, self-respect, and the courage to seek environments that honored my contributions. That night, beneath the surface of shock and hurt, I found a growing resolve to stand up, to act decisively, and to embrace a future where I was valued for who I truly am. It was the start of reclaiming agency and redefining my own narrative beyond the dismissiveness of a single moment. After the initial torrent of emotions from my boss's hurtful remark had begun to settle, I found myself entering a phase of intense reflection and inner dialogue. It was clear that the incident was more than just a casual comment. It was a piercing moment laden with meaning about how I was perceived, the nature of my work environment, and ultimately, my own sense of self-worth. As I replayed that scene in my mind, it was impossible to ignore the power dynamics at play. My boss's laughter and declaration weren't isolated. They were emblematic of a culture where employees could be viewed as mere resources, easily exchanged and discarded. This realization was difficult to accept, but it also stripped away illusions I might have held about stability and support within the company. The immediate aftermath saw a whirlwind of questions invade my thoughts. Was this really the best place for me to grow? Did I want to continue in an environment where my efforts could be dismissed so readily? Could I afford to stay silent, allowing my confidence and motivation to be steadily eroded by such unpredictability and lack of respect? Simultaneously, I acknowledged a growing internal strength. While hurt, I was not powerless. The recognition that I was seen as replaceable by someone else sparked a contrasting determination to prove that my contributions were unique, that my worth went beyond a job description, and that I had every right to a professional life characterized by dignity and respect. During the following hours and days, this clarity morphed into a plan for change. I knew that silent endurance was not a sustainable path. I needed to assert control over my career trajectory. This meant considering alternatives that would allow me to work in more supportive, appreciative environments where my talents could flourish. Despite the anxiety this decision stirred, I welcomed the prospect as a source of hope. The pain of the moment was a catalyst for transformation, a call to pursue a path aligned with my values and aspirations. I began researching new opportunities, talking discreetly with mentors, and contemplating steps that aligned with my well-being and professional growth. The internal conflict was intense. Leaving the familiarity of a steady job was frightening. The uncertainty of what lay ahead tugged at me, but the alternative, staying in a place that diminished my worth, felt worse. Each time I revisited the boss's words, I reaffirmed my refusal to let those words define me. Throughout this period, I leaned on a support system. Conversations with trusted friends and family provided perspective, encouragement, and emotional grounding. Their belief in me countered the damaging narrative introduced at dinner and bolstered my resolve to act. This phase of reflection and planning was essential not only for practical reasons but also for emotional healing. It allowed me to move from feeling victimized to becoming an active agent of my own destiny. It was a reclaiming of power, an affirmation that my worth cannot be dictated by another's dismissiveness. Ultimately, the moments after hearing "you're replaceable" evolved into a turning point. What began as a painful confrontation with rejection became the foundation of a deeper commitment to self-respect, professional integrity, and the courage to embrace new beginnings. The incident, painful as it was, sparked a journey towards empowerment and growth. It underscored the importance of honoring oneself, recognizing one's value, and making choices that reflect that recognition. This transformation set the stage for the actions I would take next. Actions that would redefine my professional path and reaffirm my right to be valued and respected. In the quiet hours following that charged dinner, I found myself grappling with a crucial realization. My sense of belonging and value at work could no longer be dependent on any one person's approval, especially not someone who dismissed me so casually. The laughter and cold words, "You're replaceable," though painful, illuminated a fundamental truth about my professional life and the necessity of self-advocacy. That night, I reflected deeply on what it meant to be replaceable. It was more than just a statement about my role. It was a pointed reminder of the impersonal nature of many corporate environments and the precariousness of job security as a result. This awareness was both sobering and galvanizing. I understood that while jobs and employers might be transient, my own talents, work ethic, and integrity were enduring qualities that deserved recognition and respect. I considered how much energy I had invested in proving my value, often bending over backward to meet expectations, sometimes at the expense of my own well-being. The boss's dismissive remark challenged me to reevaluate my priorities and boundaries, and to consider what kind of professional environment would truly nurture and respect me. Simultaneously, I wrestled with the personal implications of the comment. It highlighted a vulnerability that many employees face, the fear of being reduced to a mere resource, stripped of individuality and humanity. This fear, left unchecked, can erode confidence and motivation, causing people to settle for less than they deserve. Yet, within that fear, I found the seeds of empowerment. I realized that I could reclaim my narrative by affirming my worth independently of others' judgments. This empowerment wasn't about proving the boss wrong, but about affirming to myself that my contributions mattered and that I deserved to be treated with dignity. In the days following the dinner, I began strategizing about my next steps. I explored opportunities that aligned with my skills and personal values, prepared my resume, and sought advice from mentors who had navigated similar challenges. Each action reinforced my resolve to prioritize environments that valued authenticity and respect. During this time, I also worked to manage the emotional aftermath. I practiced mindfulness and journaling, which helped me process feelings of hurt and anger constructively. I leaned into the support of trusted friends and family, whose encouragement countered the negative self-talk triggered by my boss's words. This period of reflection and planning marked a shift from passive acceptance to proactive agency. The intense emotions that initially overwhelmed me became fuel for transformation, propelling me toward change rather than resignation. My response to being told "you're replaceable" was not defined by silence or submission, but by courage and intentionality. I understood that while I could not control others' perceptions, I could control how I allowed those perceptions to influence my decisions and self-image. Ultimately, this experience became a defining moment, a painful but necessary catalyst for growth and self-assertion. It taught me invaluable lessons about the fragility of external validation, the power of self-worth, and the importance of taking ownership of one's professional journey. The boss's laughter and dismissal, rather than breaking me, sparked the beginning of a new chapter, one marked by clarity, determination, and a commitment to seek environments where I was not replaceable but valued as the unique individual and contributor I am. This awakening set the foundation for the decisive actions that would soon follow, transforming pain into empowerment and uncertainty into opportunity. The pivotal moment of the evening came unexpectedly, with a remark that sharply cut through the formalities and civility of the dinner. As the meal progressed and conversation flowed between us, careful phrases, veiled critiques, and guarded small talk, the boss's tone gradually shifted, growing more candid and, ultimately, chillingly dismissive. Then, almost casually, almost as if it were a joke to mask something deeper, he laughed and said, "You're replaceable." The words landed like a physical blow, echoing through me with brutal clarity. It wasn't merely a statement about the job or my performance. It felt like a verdict on my value as a professional and, as painful as it was to admit, as a person. The laughter that accompanied the comment only intensified the sting, transforming the phrase from a detached observation into a cutting dismissal. For a moment, I sat frozen, the sound of his laughter lingering ominously in my ears. My mind scrambled to process what had just been said. Was it a test? A joke gone wrong? Or a cold declaration of a reality I had never dared confront so directly? The shock of hearing such words from someone who was supposed to be a mentor, a leader, and perhaps an ally was disorienting. In that instant, Everything about our relationship and the work environment flashed before my eyes. I recalled moments of praise and support, which now felt hollow in light of this statement. I thought about the countless hours I had poured into projects, the late nights and sacrifices made, not just for the company, but to prove my worth, to earn respect and acknowledgement. Yet here was this crushing reminder that, to him, I was just another replaceable cog in an unforgiving machine. The phrase weighed heavily on me, pressing down with suffocating certainty. It stripped away the optimism that had sustained me and exposed a raw nerve of vulnerability, the fear of being undervalued, discarded, and forgotten. In that exchange, the difference between being seen as an individual contributor and being treated as an interchangeable resource was laid brutally bare. I struggled to maintain composure, a mix of emotions flooding through me. Hurt, anger, disbelief, and a simmering resolve. Was this really how my efforts were perceived? Was my dedication so easily dismissed? Beneath the immediate outrage was an undercurrent of deeper questions. What did it truly mean to be replaceable? And why had I allowed myself to be defined by others' judgments for so long? The laughter that accompanied the comment added a bitter edge. It suggested a lack of empathy or recognition for the human impact of those words, as if my value was something trivial or expendable. This emotional detachment was perhaps the most painful, highlighting the chasm between the leadership role my boss occupied and the vulnerability of those like me who relied on his management. In the silence that followed, I found myself grappling with the significance of the moment. The dinner table, once a setting for dialogue and exchange, now felt like an arena where my worth was being judged and found wanting. The casual cruelty of the comment contrasted starkly with the formal ambience of the restaurant. The soft lighting, the elegant table settings, the quiet murmurs of other diners, underscoring how easily professional facades can mask harsh realities. I contemplated responding in kind, challenging the assertion or defending my contributions. Yet, the power imbalance was palpable, and I recognized that confrontation in that moment might only exacerbate the tension or leave me further marginalized. Instead, I played the situation strategically, absorbing the impact while calculating my next steps. The hours that followed the boss's dismissive laugh and cruel words were marked by a tumultuous inner battle. Though the physical presence of the dinner had faded, the emotional resonance lingered vividly, echoing in thoughts and feelings that were impossible to ignore. As the night deepened, I found myself oscillating between moments of despair and sparks of resolve, recognizing that this incident was a profound inflection point, demanding deliberate reflection and action. In solitude, the sharp sting of being labeled replaceable became a mirror reflecting insecurities I had long harbored in silence. It forced me to confront painful questions. Was my work truly valued? Was my identity at the company just a fragile construct, easily dismantled by a single careless remark? These questions pulled at the very fabric of my professional self-esteem, shaking foundations that I had built with years of effort and dedication. Yet as exhaustion crept in, so too did clarity. The incident crystallized the urgent need to reclaim ownership of my professional narrative, to wrest control from the dismissive hands of a leader whose words carried disproportionate weight. I saw that allowing this moment to define me would only perpetuate a cycle of undervaluation and disempowerment, not just here but throughout my career. Resolute, I began to sketch a vision for change. This vision was not born of impulsive frustration but of careful contemplation, grounded in a desire to seek environments where my contributions would be met with respect and appreciation. I acknowledged that leaving a familiar position would be fraught with uncertainty and risk, but the alternative, staying and silently enduring, was a slow erosion of identity and ambition. The contrast between the cold dismissal and the warmth of my own inner drive became stark. I identified my core values and the kind of professional relationships I deserved, ones built on mutual respect, transparency, and support. These reflections compelled me to prioritize my well-being and professional growth above all else, recognizing that true success lies not only in accomplishments but in the spaces that allow joy and dignity. Amid this mental and emotional transition, I sought counsel and solidarity from trusted confidants. Sharing the experience with friends and mentors revealed the universality of such struggles and provided much-needed perspective and encouragement. Their affirmations reinforced my self-worth and emboldened me to pursue a path aligned with authenticity and respect. I also began to map concrete steps, updating my resume, exploring alternative opportunities, and regaining control over my professional journey. Preparation became a source of empowerment, transforming anxiety into focused action. Each small accomplishment in this process rebuilt confidence and affirmed my capacity to navigate change. Physiologically, the shift was palpable. The racing heart calmed, tension eased from my shoulders, and a steadier rhythm returned. Emotional wounds began to heal, replaced by a growing sense of empowerment and optimism. The laughter that once haunted became a call to rise, a reminder of resilience forged in adversity. Looking back, I recognize how this pivotal moment encapsulated broader truths about workplace dynamics: the fragility of employee esteem under indifferent leadership, the importance of self-advocacy, and the courage required to seek better conditions. It was a reminder that professional dignity is never a given but must be claimed actively and protected vigilantly. Ultimately, the night's profound emotional reaction served as the catalyst for transformation, a painful awakening that led to renewed purpose and self-respect. It galvanized a commitment to seek not just employment but meaningful engagement. Not just a paycheck but a space where contributions mattered and people were valued. This journey from shock and hurt to empowerment and action marked the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by courage, clarity, and the unwavering assertion of worth. It was the moment when I chose not to be replaceable in my own story, but instead, to author a future built on dignity, respect, and authentic success. As the dawn broke after that difficult evening, I awoke with a clarity I hadn't anticipated. The conversation, the laughter, and the dismissive comment "you're replaceable" had left an indelible mark, but I also recognized them as a catalyst for change I desperately needed. That morning, crystallized by the stark contrast between pain and resolve, I made a pivotal decision, a decision that would mark the beginning of reclaiming my professional and personal autonomy. Sitting down to write my resignation letter, I was flooded with a complex mix of emotions. There was a profound sense of relief alongside lingering unease and apprehension. Leaving a stable job meant stepping into uncertainty, yet the alternative, to remain in an environment where I was dismissed and devalued, felt far more daunting. Each word I wrote was a testament to my courage, a declaration that I would no longer tolerate disrespect as the price for employment. Crafting the letter, I chose to be professional and clear. I expressed gratitude for the opportunities I'd been given and for the skills and experiences I had gained, but I was resolute in stating my decision to move on. The act of putting thoughts into words was cathartic, formalizing the transition from victimhood to empowerment. After signing the resignation, I felt an unexpected surge of strength. The weight of months of unspoken frustrations and doubts lifted slightly. This was not merely a letter. It was a symbol of agency, a first step toward reclaiming dignity and seeking a space that aligned with my values and aspirations. The hours following the submission were moments of both vulnerability and newfound freedom. I experienced the duality of letting go of the familiar while opening myself to new possibilities. What had once seemed like a threat now transformed into an opportunity, a chance to redefine success on my own terms. I knew the road ahead would be challenging. Financial concerns, professional uncertainty, and the internal struggle with self-doubt loomed large. But the clarity of my conviction and the support of trusted friends gave me courage. I was determined to embrace this transition not as an end but as a powerful beginning. Reflection during this period deepened my understanding of respect and belonging in the workplace. I resolved to seek environments where collaboration, recognition, and mutual support were foundational. No longer would I accept the casual dismissal of my contributions or sacrifice my self-worth for the illusion of job security. This decision also marked a turning point in how I viewed authority and leadership. It underscored the necessity of compassionate, supportive leadership in fostering not only productivity but also well-being and professional fulfillment. I became more attuned to identifying red flags and advocating for environments that valued people beyond their output. Ultimately, signing my resignation was an act of reclaiming my story. It transformed a painful episode into a narrative of resilience, empowerment, and purposeful change. This decisive action set the stage for new opportunities and growth, affirming that while one chapter had closed, another, richer and more aligned with my true self, awaited. This moment embodied a profound lesson, that dignity and respect are non-negotiable, and that the courage to walk away from devaluation is a powerful assertion of self-worth. The boss's laughter and his words motivated a journey beyond replaceability, toward authenticity, fulfillment, and the empowering realization that I alone define my value and future. In the days following my resignation, I experienced a complex mix of emotions: relief, uncertainty, freedom, and anxiety that accompanied stepping into the unknown. Leaving a job is never merely a professional decision. It profoundly impacts identity, routine, and financial stability. Yet, despite the challenges, I found solace in knowing I had taken control of my narrative and refused to remain in a situation where I felt undervalued. This period became a time of self-discovery and growth. I devoted hours to reflecting on my strengths, passions, and what I sought in my next chapter. I reconnected with mentors and peers who provided encouragement and guidance, reminding me of my worth and potential beyond the constraints of my former workplace. The experience ignited a renewed commitment to personal and professional integrity. I vowed to seek environments that aligned not only with my skills, but also with my values. Places where respect, collaboration, and genuine appreciation nurtured growth rather than stifled it. Job searching was at times daunting. The competitive landscape and uncertainty of outcomes tested my resilience. Yet, each application, interview, and conversation reinforced my belief in the importance of belonging and recognition. I refused to settle for safety at the expense of self-respect. Through this journey, I also came to appreciate the importance of setting clear boundaries and advocating for myself. The painful lesson from the "you're replaceable" comment transformed into a powerful motivator to demand environments where I could thrive authentically. Eventually, opportunities began to emerge, roles that promised not only professional challenges but also cultures valuing employee dignity. Accepting a new position felt like a triumph of courage and self-belief, a tangible reward for embracing change rather than fearing it. Looking back, the decision to sign my resignation that morning marked a radical reclamation of agency. What began as a moment of dismissal became a beacon of empowerment, a testament to the power of recognizing one's worth and acting decisively. This experience reshaped my understanding of workplace dynamics, personal boundaries, and the vital necessity of environments that foster mutual respect. It taught me that dignity is not optional but essential, and that true growth is rooted in authenticity and courage. The laughter and harsh words once wielded as weapons instead became catalysts propelling me toward a fulfilled, empowered future. One where I define my path and refuse to be anyone's replaceable part. This journey affirmed that the greatest successes arise from embracing challenges and choosing self-respect above all. As I transitioned into the new phase of my career, the lessons learned from that fateful dinner remained vivid and served as a constant reminder of what I would no longer tolerate. I approached my new role with renewed vigor and a clearer understanding of my values and boundaries. The experience had instilled in me a deeper sense of self-awareness and an unwavering commitment to advocating for my dignity and worth. In my interactions with colleagues and supervisors, I was more mindful of fostering open, respectful communication. I prioritized transparency and authenticity, striving to contribute not only through skills, but also by building trust and mutual respect. These efforts helped establish a healthier, more supportive work environment, one that contrasted sharply with the one I had left behind. The memory of being told I was replaceable fueled my determination to excel, not out of fear or desperation, but as an affirmation of my capabilities and unique contributions. I sought continual growth, taking on challenges that aligned with my passions and strengths, while maintaining a balance that preserved my mental and emotional well-being. I also became an advocate for others who might feel similarly undervalued or dismissed. Drawing from my own experience, I provided support and guidance to colleagues navigating difficult workplace dynamics. This sense of community and solidarity reinforced my belief in the power of collective resilience and empathy. Over time, the initial hurt transformed into a wellspring of motivation and empowerment. The experience catalyzed not only a career shift but also a profound personal transformation, teaching me the importance of self-respect, courage, and intentionality in all areas of life. Looking back, the journey from that painful dinner to my present state of confidence and fulfillment underscores that setbacks can be powerful catalysts for growth. What once felt like rejection became a turning point, propelling me toward a future where I am no longer defined by others' dismissals but by my own values and aspirations. This journey affirmed that while challenges and painful moments are inevitable, the response to them shapes the course of one's life. Choosing to embrace change, assert worth, and seek environments of respect opens doors to new possibilities and authentic success. Ultimately, the act of signing my resignation was not an end but a beginning, a declaration that I deserved more than dismissal and that my professional journey would be guided by dignity, purpose, and self-empowerment. It was a defining moment, transforming vulnerability into strength and replacing fear with hope. The experience also reshaped my broader perspective on leadership and organizational culture. I became more critically aware of how leadership styles impact employee morale, engagement, and retention. Witnessing firsthand how a leader's careless words could undermine confidence made me determined to foster, in my own professional interactions, a culture of respect, empathy, and genuine recognition. I committed to cultivating qualities of a supportive leader, someone who listens actively, communicates constructively, and values each person's unique contributions. This commitment extended beyond my immediate work to include mentoring others, promoting inclusivity, and encouraging open dialogue. Through these actions, I sought to contribute to creating environments where no one would feel replaceable, in the dismissive sense, but instead empowered and valued. Moreover, the incident inspired me to engage with broader conversations about workplace well-being and employee rights. I became interested in advocating for systemic changes that protect employees from dehumanizing treatment and promote healthier, more sustainable work practices. This passion grew alongside my career, influencing choices and commitments that aligned with ethical and compassionate leadership. On a personal level, I embraced the journey as a testament to resilience. The pain of that dinner became a source of strength, a reminder that setbacks, even those inflicted by others' disregard, can be transformed into catalysts for growth and positive change. I learned to honor my feelings without letting them define me, and to trust in my capacity to navigate difficulties with grace and determination. In embracing these lessons, I discovered the profound truth that true belonging and success stem not from external approval, but from internal alignment with one's values and the courage to act in accordance with them. This realization lifted a heavy burden, freeing me from the need to constantly prove worth to others who might never fully appreciate it. Reflecting on this chapter of my life, I hold deep gratitude for the painful moment and the clarity it brought. It was a crucible that forged a stronger, wiser, and more authentic version of myself. The words "you're replaceable" became not a sentence but a challenge I met by choosing dignity, empowerment, and the pursuit of meaningful connection and contribution. This journey illuminated the power of self-respect and the transformative potential of adversity. It taught me that while we cannot always control how others treat us, we can always choose how we respond, reclaiming our narrative and shaping a future defined by integrity, purpose, and fulfillment. In the end, the painful laughter at that dinner was a seed from which grew a more courageous, compassionate, and empowered professional and person. One who embraces challenges as opportunities and refuses to be diminished by the dismissiveness of others. That moment, once so painful, stands as a testament to resilience and the enduring human capacity for growth and renewal.